Welcome to the Great Basin Prescribed Fire and Smoke Transport Briefing for Wednesday, October 29th. Currently, there is quite a bit of prescribed burning occurring up in Idaho and down into northern Utah, with some scattered projects over the southern half of the Great Basin and in western areas. Over the last 7 to 14 days, we've continued to see precipitation over the northern half of the region, with some areas in the Sierra and northern Nevada stretching east across southern Idaho, northern Utah, into western Wyoming, which have seen above normal precipitation for the time of year. Some notable drier areas are over the southern half of the Great Basin. Looking at the last 72 hours, the new precipitation and snowfall is indicated here, where we've seen precipitation across northern Nevada and northern Utah, and some areas have seen over 4 to 6 inches of new snowfall in the higher terrain. Currently, our snowpack is above normal in most areas of the Great Basin, with only some very light snowpack in the northern Sierra. However, again, for this time of year, we typically don't have a lot of snow on the ground, so amounts are still relatively on the light side, but still above normal for the time of year. Looking at our satellite loop from this morning, we do have an area of low pressure that's tracking across the Pacific Northwest, across Idaho into the northern Rockies by later today, and this will bring some light showers or cloud cover across the northern areas of the Great Basin. Any precipitation that occurs today in central Idaho will definitely be on the light side, with drier conditions across Nevada, Utah, and into Arizona. So looking at the weather pattern for later today, you can see that trough moves east into Montana. So we will be seeing drier conditions overall and generally warm temperatures, especially over southern and western areas. Winds will remain light under the ridge of high pressure, so generally poor dispersion over southern areas, but as this low tracks across the north, that will still keep dispersion fairly decent over parts of Idaho. Looking at the transport winds, there will be some breezy winds as that trough moves across to the north today, keeping that dispersion a little bit higher, but otherwise very light winds to the south, so that it will be something to watch. In some of our prescribed burning areas will be some impacts to inversions and visibility. Mixing heights will remain on the low side across Utah and much of the Great Basin. Temperatures today will increase to above normal over western areas of the Great Basin under the ridge, and generally stay near to below normal over northern and eastern areas as the trough moves across. Otherwise, relative humidity remains high in the north, with the clouds and showers, and much drier over the southern half of Nevada and Utah into northern Arizona. As we move into Thursday, we will see another weak system moving across the northwest, again keeping some cloud cover across northern areas, but generally on the drier side. Otherwise, dry conditions further south, and again, generally poor dispersion except for in some of the higher terrain. We will see some breezy winds over parts of especially the higher terrain of the southern half of Nevada into Utah, but most gusts in the 20s to around 30 miles per hour at times in the late afternoon. Otherwise, mixing heights generally low to moderate. Temperatures will continue to remain below normal in the far north and above normal further south, and relative humidity remaining in the single digits to low teens in the south and above 30% up north. As we move into Friday, the ridge continues to build along the west coast, but you can still see some of that moisture spilling over the ridge for parts of central Idaho to see some cloud cover. Otherwise, generally light winds and poor dispersion, with the exception of across Utah, where on the east side of that ridge, we'll see some breezy northwest downslope winds, which will keep the dispersion a bit higher east of the mountains. And looking at the transport winds, again, just some breezy winds in the north as we see the moisture and system just to our west, and then we could see some breezy winds over eastern Utah, keeping that dispersion and mixing height definitely higher east of the central mountains in Utah. Temperatures will increase a bit on Friday as that ridge starts to build in from the west, but we'll still see those highs generally below normal in the far north and relative humidity staying high in the north and still drier in the south. 3-day precipitation, you can see any moisture we see in the north will mostly be in the form of cloud cover, but we could see some light showers in central Idaho today and going into later part of this week, but amounts will be fairly light. And then looking at the weekend, the ridge really becomes amplified across the region, so Saturday should be a dry day region-wide with just some cloud cover spilling over the top of the ridge in the north, but otherwise light winds and poor dispersion. So again, something to monitor through the weekend, especially with the prescribed burning, just monitoring those visibilities and the inversions. And then as we go into Sunday, we will start to see that ridge flatten out a bit in the north. And by early next week, we'll see some moisture spilling across the top again for Idaho, giving some light shower activity going into the later part of this weekend into early next week. And then the next storm system arrives by midweek, and this will see a little bit of an increase in winds over western and northern areas by Tuesday, with much of the moisture holding off until either later on Tuesday or going into Wednesday and pushing across the Great Basin. So we will have a prolonged dry period until at least the Tuesday, Wednesday time period next week. Looking at the weekend precipitation, again, mainly later in the weekend, any showers would be up north in central Idaho, which also will be in the form of higher elevation snowfall as well. And then going into early next week, light precipitation, but you can see the next system pushing some precipitation into the northwest and northern California, which will just be skirting our geographic area to the west. 7-day total precip, again, only notable precipitation in the Great Basin will be over central Idaho. The 8 to 14-day outlook from November 5th through the 11th shows above normal temperatures and the better chance for above normal precipitation confined to northern areas as these systems periodically move through the northwest, northern Great Basin, and northern Rockies. It looks like right now we should be seeing a system move through the region every 5 to 7 days. That concludes our webcast for today. Check back on Friday for the latest updates.